XDefiant is finally released. We've put together this in-depth aiming guide to help you out. By the end of this video, you and I will create an aim training routine together to help you achieve an edge in this game. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an esports aim coach, and I've studied XDefiant before it even came out. And I've come across some interesting aspects that I haven't heard of before. I'll do my best to break them down for you. Here is me experiencing dying to the insane air strafing in XDefiant for the first time. What the hell is that? Now here is me having too much fun playing XDefiant with this crazy aim style. Whether it's to counter extreme air strafes or achieve a flashy target switch aim style, in this video you will learn everything there is to know when it comes to aiming in XDefiant. Let's begin with this movement mechanic that I fell victim to when I first started XDefiant: air strafing. As you've just seen by my reaction earlier, this was a baffling thing, as I didn't know what to do in situations like this. Take a look at these clips.
Dude, you don't move your fat ass out the way, I'm gonna beat it, bro.
Hold on, wait.
You can see how experienced players take advantage of this air strafing mechanic to make themselves a very difficult target to hit. Like, look here, the enemy is literally flying around the map. Air strafing is when a player is in the air and uses their movement keys to change direction. Unlike regular jumping, where you go in a straight line, air strafing allows the player to change directions while being in the air. Now, this on its own doesn't look too crazy, but in XDefiant, to effectively utilize air strafing, you need to build momentum. You can do this by combining it with this crowd jumping mechanic, which will add extra speed and allow you to keep strafing over multiple jumps. So in order to momentum bunny hop in XDefiant, you need to combine both the crouch and jump button, so you need to press them at the same time. What that will do is it will launch you in the air. So I'm using a keyboard here, but this can also be done by a controller. I'll press both my control, which is the crouch key, and my space, which is the jump key. And in order to gain momentum, what you want to do is sprint, do the crowd jump mechanic, and as soon as you land, you want to do it again. So it should look something like this. Now this can be stacked up to 5 times before you fatigue. To combine this with a strafe, you simply have to sprint, do this jump mechanic, and while you're in the air, use your left or right key. Now if you want to play at higher levels, you need to be able to keep your crosshair on these small and fast enemy movements. This skill is called Reactive micro tracking and can be very well trained in isolation with an aim trainer. Aiming at air strafing players is hard, but with repetitive practice, it gets easier. Using Oblivity scenario creator, I decided to create my own scenario that matches the movement, speed, and feel of air strafes in XDefiant. Here is how I did it. First, I recorded a simple jump in XDefiant. Then, I slowed down the video to measure the exact time it took for the player to move up and down. I wanted my scenario to match these exact values. After a lot of fine-tuning, I was able to recreate the same up and down acceleration. The next step was adding the air strafing motion. I needed to slow down the video even more, which I did using AI. This helped me calculate the exact percentage of the horizontal movement force applied to the player when they're in the air. After even more fine-tuning, voila! Let me introduce you to XDefiant air strafing 1-to-1. Now that I have my scenario, I practiced it in 2 steps. Step 1. Timing and momentum read. First, I let the scenario run multiple times without doing anything. I then closely watched the target to focus on learning its movements and momentum in the air. After studying the target, I time single shots when the target lands to understand its drop-off time. Step 2. Micro flicking reactively. I then honed my reactive micro flicks by adjusting my initial crosshair position away from the target and moving it as soon as the target jumps. During the round, I need to be in a reactive state. I do this by simply focusing all my attention on the target and mentally picturing it making a move. It's important to land my first shot on the opponent when they perform an air strafe. You have to understand that when an enemy makes contact with you and they're about to air strafe, they're trading their first shot with a jump. If my reactivity, especially in micro flicks, is on point, I can make their decision rewarding for me by hitting my shot first and tracking them until they're dead. Combining these 2 methods and practicing them makes air strafing not only easier and more perceivable, but it also enhances your intuitive aiming in unpredictable situations. When you think about fast-paced shooter games like Apex or Overwatch, you usually think about horizontal or vertical tracking. Verticality often comes to mind because of flying enemies, map layouts, and various character abilities. But in XDefiant, it's surprisingly different. It's mainly horizontally dominant. I mean, for starters, the maps in XDefiant are straight up flat, with much less verticality even compared to maps in Call of Duty. With the appropriate crosshair positioning, your aiming will mainly move either left or right. This covers about 80 to 90% of the duels you encounter with any gun in the game. This simply signifies that horizontal stability is a big factor in the aiming fundamentals of this game. It's important to note that to take advantage of the low verticality in XDefiant, you need to use proper crosshair positioning. Aim to always keep it ahead or upper body level, depending on the gun you're using. When it comes to horizontal stability, I like to split it into 2 parts: arm placement / technique and training. Let's start with the first one. The way you place and move your arm affects how stable your horizontal aiming is. Let me show you the correct technique. What I like to do is keep my arm in the middle of the mouse pad for like a neutral position while I play. And this initial aiming position makes horizontal aiming much easier and more controlled. Let's say I start from here. If it's a long horizontal shot that I need to take, I'm gonna have to reset since there isn't much space. During that reset, I'm gonna mess up my crosshairs positioning, and then it will force my flick to become diagonal. Now, if I start from a neutral position, it's effortless to do a horizontal flick, and I maintain the same exact crosshair position. Let's say like I start from here. This is not a neutral position, so I'm gonna have to go diagonal. Now my arm lifts up. Now I lose stability. So if you want that natural horizontal stability with your technique, always start from a neutral position. And now back to the video. Why comfortability is important? It's because it simply makes it easier to stay within the horizontal line. If I use a pencil with an uncomfortable technique, my line may look like this, as opposed to a comfortable technique where my line will end up looking like this. When it comes to training horizontal stability, I like to use this scenario in Oblivity called horizontal heads, which consists of two distant targets and a line placed in between them. I practice this scenario in two specific ways. First, I'll start by practicing my technique to move my aim along the line, making sure it's smooth without any shaking or moving. I'll do this without shooting any targets. Once I get this right, I then practice drawing straight lines between targets, focusing on staying inside the line and making one clean shot at the target. It's important to keep your crosshair moving smoothly all the way to the target and to stop only when you reach it. Try not to make any extra adjustments once you're aiming at the target. This will help you develop better intuitive aiming, which is what you'll need for the next part of the video. Intuitive aiming and the other things we talked about in this guide have helped me get this flashy aim style that you saw earlier, which by the way is a lot of fun. To achieve this target switching aim style, you should play in a way where you skip verifying your crosshair landing on the target. Instead, perform a fast intuitive flick and just shoot. Focus mostly on reacting and fully trusting your intuition. Keep in mind that this aiming style is mainly to capture spectacular highlights as opposed to achieving consistent performance. Shout out to the trickshot community. One more thing about intuitive aiming is your mouse sensitivity. For a natural and intuitive feel, you need a sensitivity that suits you and fits the game situations you face in XDefiant. If you're willing to spend some time on this, we suggest using our sensitivity finder. It will show you the mouse sensitivity that you perform best with. And by the time you watch this video, we'll already have sensitivity finder support for XDefiant. Now that we've talked about plenty specific situations I want to train for, I'll show you how I create a short, personalized aim training routine for XDefiant. By the way, thanks for sticking with me so far. Make sure to leave us a follow if you want to see more guides like this. When I create an aim training routine, I focus on the key aiming skills that are needed for the game. My routine consists of two parts: warming up and an isolated aim training session. A good rule of thumb when choosing a scenario is to find one that is both beneficial and fun to do. If a scenario is only fun but doesn't really help you improve, you might eventually steer away from aim training as you won't see any quick results. On the other hand, if a scenario is very beneficial but too hard, you might not want to keep doing it regularly. By striking a good balance, you can meet your discipline goals and also improve at your mechanics. What I like to do is use our own routine creator. So first I'll just boot up Oblivity, then I'll head on over to the features tab. Okay, now all I need to do is just click on the routine system. Now I click on the plus icon at the top and that will let me create a new routine. Here I want to name my routine, so I'm gonna name it Prince XDefiant Training. Click on create. Now I'm in the routine page. To add a scenario playlist, all I have to do is just click on the big plus icon right here. For my warm-up, I'll be adding engaging scenarios that will help me feel my aim. I'm a big fan of a scenario called pressure aiming. It's super fun and also warms up my hands pretty nicely. I will also add a scenario called warm-up switch, which helps me warm up my flicking and tracking skills. Now remember, your warm-ups shouldn't be too long, and that's to avoid fatiguing over longer gaming sessions. So I'll set mine to 3x each, which will take me about 5 minutes. Moving on to the actual aim training part of the routine, I'll start by adding the XDefiant air strafing scenario that we created earlier. I'll also include a scenario called extra thin tracking, which is great for improving tracking smoothness. Next, I'll add the horizontal head scenario we talked about earlier in the video, where we've broken down how to effectively train your horizontal stability and control. Then I'll add a drill called 2 strafing heads. This scenario nicely combines reactive microflicks, target switching, and tracking. I suck at countering air strafes and target switching, so I'll set the amounts of those scenarios to 6 times each, and the rest 4 times each. I like to keep my practice under 15 minutes to stay focused and not get bored. I'll also set a break after every 2 training days, so allow myself to reset and reap the benefits of my routine. So this is my personalized XDefiant aim training routine now completed. Feel free to use it anytime. You can also adjust it to suit your preference. For example, if you like picking up the sniper in XDefiant, you might want to add a scenario like this and set the runs higher. And if you want to get better at the flashy target switch aiming style we talked about earlier, then tweak the routine to focus on target switch scenarios like this one. You can find my routine by searching Prince XDefiant Training in the routine area in Oblivity. I'd love to see you make your own version. Please comment down below with the name of your routine so I can check it out and tell you what I think. And I'll see you in the next video.